everyone, welcome to this week's lecture. I'm going to be doing these a little bit differently. I can give you some more in-depth look at what I'm going to be working with. Today we're talking about getting started with research. I'm going to be going over the PowerPoint, which if you look in your modules, you should go down from the top to the week 7 module. So the week 8 module. And all the research instructions. Hi everyone, this week's lecture I'm going to talk about how to get started on your research for your final paper. I'm going to be going over a PowerPoint on library research instructions, which is in your week 7 module. So if you log into your modules and scroll down to week 7, you'll see it right here on the library research instructions. I would recommend opening it in the view in Canvas, because then all the links in it will work. You can't open it in PowerPoint, but if you do, then the links to embedded links in it won't work. So, I'm going to go over this, and I'm going to give you a multitude of ways for doing research for the final paper. The final paper is going to require you to have at least 5 reliable sources. So this is going to help you figure out what some of those are, and it may also make your argument for your paper easier to figure out. Doing research and figuring out what your argument often go hand in hand. Okay, so let's take a look. First question is, why research? Research is not something that instructors assign just to make you suffer. It's actually a very important skill, not only to learn early in your college career, because you can be doing it in other classes, but it's something that also applies to the real world very much. You're going to be doing this in other classes. You're going to have to do research for your project classes and other classes later on. But when you get into the real world for your own life of figuring out, okay, what career do I want to go into, what job should I figure out how to get into, that information is only available in your research. You may also get into a job where your boss asks you, find out what the competition is doing, find out what the competitors are up to, figure out what the future is going to be. In order to do this, you have to do research. So let's figure out exactly what that entails. The first issue with doing research today is information overload. You can look at anything on the internet, and there's billions of pieces of information on it. So the problem today is not finding information per se. The problem is figuring out what parts of that information are true and what parts of it are not. In the past, there was much less information, right? Because before the internet, most of the research information is all going to be in libraries or archives or places like that. That information was much more reliable because there are multiple gatekeepers, right? If a book gets published before the internet, that means someone thought it was worthwhile information, someone thought that other people would read it, and so they would publish it. They would put the money down to make it a book and distribute it. This also goes for libraries. If a book got into a library, that means that the librarian thought this book was useful and people would read it and it had more or less truthful information. The internet doesn't operate like that. So it can be tricky, it can be confusing, it can be overwhelming. Today I'm going to try to clear up some of that confusion. Okay. Before doing research, you have to ask yourself a number of questions. What is the assignment? What is the purpose? Is the assignment asking for information? Is the assignment asking that I construct an argument or analyze something? Is it a compare and contrast? How many sources do you need? What kind of sources does the assignment require? Well, for this one, the assignment is asking you to make an argument. You are identifying a social problem, and you're going to give a 3-point thesis on how to fix it. That's the purpose of this research. What is the problem? How do we fix it? The sources you need are at least 5 sources, and one of them has to be a primary source, one of them has to be a secondary source. Primary source is like a original document, right? So if you were arguing, for example, about, let's say, video game addiction. I'm going to use that one for this lecture as an example of a social problem that we could potentially fix. A primary source might be the first video game that people have reported becoming addicted to. I don't know what that was. Maybe it was Pong. Maybe it was Mario Brothers, one of the very early games. If you were citing that in your paper, that would be a primary source. It's a piece of information from history that you're building on. A secondary source is like an essay or an article or someone writing about that primary source. So the first news article about Mario Brothers or Pong or Mortal Kombat, whatever. So you need 5. They have to be, at least one has to be a primary or secondary source, and the rest either one. So that's what you need. You're constructing an argument, and you need 5 sources. Okay. The next part of this is, you know it has to be on a social problem. You have to narrow that down to make the argument palatable and easy to work with. So if it's too broad, you're going to run into problems. So for example, if you are trying to write about video games, maybe problems caused by video games, it's too big. It has to be narrowed down into a specific problem. Are we talking about, gambling in video games? Are we talking about addiction to video games? Are we talking about video games potentially causing violence? That's a way to narrow the subject down. So when you're thinking about what you want to write about, figure out how to narrow the topic down. A good rule of thumb for this is to take it a step below whatever your hobby or interest or concern is, right? So if you're concerned about homelessness, a step below that is homelessness in San Jose, right? If you're concerned about problems with video games and addiction are a nice step down. If you were writing about anything, try to go a step lower. That will make it more workable. Okay, next thing to think about is the places we go to initially when we're thinking about what we want to research, need some background information, is often Wikipedia. And that's a great place to start. If you want to know a little bit about something, often the articles on Wikipedia are really great, but they have limitations. So let's say, for example, we look up video game addiction. Comes right up, it's a popular article. It's got a definition here. It describes sort of what it is. When you're describing a problem in the first part of your essay, you're going to find some great information in here. However, keep in mind you cannot cite Wikipedia. It's a big no-no because anyone can write a Wikipedia article. They can be very reliable, but as a rule of thumb, you cannot cite them. However, you can cite the articles that they cite. So if you notice, in the first sentence of this, they have this little number here, and it's connected to source. They have numbers here, they have numbers here. So if you click on them or scroll to the bottom of the article, they've cited all their sources. Now these are cited in Chicago style, Continental style. They still work. So if you click on the first source, you have a definition from University of California at Berkeley. No, actually the source doesn't work. But let's try another one. Is video game addiction and mental disorder? This is from MSN. Yes, no, maybe. Well, see, now this is why Wikipedia can be problematic because people don't always have appropriate sources. Let's see. Here, try one more. Here's a Washington Post article about addiction in Korea. So Washington Post, we've got an author. This is a reliable source. It's from a actual news company. It's citing the sources. It has an author. It has a post date. So you could cite something like this. You can't cite Wikipedia. It is a good place to find resources and give you a background on the topic. Okay. The other thing to notice about Wikipedia and doing searching is using different terms will help you find different information. So if you search for video game addiction, you'll find some stuff, but you could also search for, problems caused by video games, or obsession with video games. These are terms that will give you different results, and it might help you figure out what you're looking for. So using different search terms will be helpful. Okay, the next part, once you've sort of figured out what the assignment is, what you're researching for, and you've also done a little background, maybe via Google or Wikipedia, you can start looking at the primary cataloging areas for information. This is beyond Google and Wikipedia. So the first place you should look is the library catalog at Coxwell. We don't have a ton of books, but books that we do have are very specific to the majors here. So you may find something in our library. So if we look for video game addiction, let's see what comes up. Nothing. Well, let's try addiction. Let's try a different search term. So here's one on other types of addiction. So none of this is relevant. If we put in video games, certainly there'll be some books. The art of video game storytelling, basics of video games, the impact of video games and violence, gaming, hearing practice, game audio, challenges for characters, interactive story game, Java video game tester. So, what video games have to teach about learning and literacy? That might be possibly something useful. Guiding video experiences. So, maybe we don't have exactly what you're searching for, but depending on the topic, it's possible that we do. So that's a good place to start, is the library catalog. There are also a bunch of other awesome libraries in the area. So if you look at the Santa Clara Public Library, let's do a search in here. Video game, let's see what they've got. They've got 11 results. So this is a memoir on video game addiction. This is a parent's guide to preventing and overcoming problems with gaming. Practical guide for parenting and screening for the child, death by video games. So they've got some great stuff. They've got 3 or 4 awesome books on the issue. If we go to the San Jose Public Library, which is a huge library, they've got 16. So they've got some of the similar books. They've got some different ones. Some of them aren't as relevant. You have to kind of pierce through. But some great stuff. So if you don't find it in our library, look at a local library system. You can get a library card for free, and you can look and see what they have online before you go to the library. So then you don't waste a trip. So take a look at those if you're interested. Okay. The next thing to think about is the differences between articles using EBSCO. So EBSCO is an academic database that has thousands, millions of articles on academic topics, scientific topics. When you log into it, the biggest challenge is that it has so many. So if you click on the link and open up the EBSCO host, the login is right here. The username is Cogswell, the password is board693. Type that in. So here's EBSCO. If you click in video game addiction, pops up. Notice that it also allows you to narrow it down even more. We've got social responsibility, college performance in teens, symptoms of stress, effects. So it actually helps you narrow it down before you even put it on. So if we don't narrow it, we just put in video game addiction, there are 1,200 articles. Some of them are really cool. Relationship between video game addiction and interfamily relationships. There's an Associated Press discussing it. Video game addiction on the scale of adolescence. Problem gaming, short primer. Why do some people become addicted to digital games more easily? Okay. If you want to limit it, and this is what this is all about, these are some things to look at. So a scholarly or academic or peer-reviewed article is one of the search categories you can do. And this will limit the article by only showing those which have been read by people who are scholars who are peers of those who've written the article and have approved it and said, yes, what you're writing is correct. Yes, what you're writing has good sources. Yes, you're an authority. So if we click over here on the left-hand side, we go into scholarly peer-reviewed journals. How many articles do we have? Now we've got half as many. We've only got 600. Okay? There's other ways we can limit this. We can limit the date. So this was only back to 1996. You might look that far back, but you might also think, I really only want to talk about what's happened in the last 10 years. So let's move this up to 2009 and see how we can do. So now we're down to 478. There's still quite a bit. Maybe you want to only look at academic journals. That limits it a little bit more. You can also look by publication, you can look by publisher, you can see how it's separated by different categories, what databases they're using. So there's ways to limit references available. You can click on that. Some of them cite their sources, some don't. So if you look for only peer-reviewed articles with references, you end up with only 72 articles, which is much more manageable. And these are all very good sources. So that's something to notice about EBSCO, is that you want to be able to narrow it down in your research. Because you can easily get overwhelmed, especially if you're just searching for a very particular piece of information. If you're just looking for, well, how big of a problem is this? Is this a huge issue, or is it a minor issue? Just leave that data. You don't have to dig through 70 articles, so you want to limit it down. And one of the best ways to do that, obviously, is in your search terms. So maybe as a problem, or even prevalence of video game addiction. There's much fewer articles. Okay, so that's all information you can learn. The next thing is evaluating a source. So you found a source and you're looking at it. When you find a source on Wikipedia, especially if it's a scholarly article, it's much more likely to be reliable. If you find a source via Wikipedia or Google search, you have to make sure to analyze it. You have to break it down into 5 categories of rating. And the first way to do this is with authority. So, is the person writing the article actually an authority? So if they were writing about video game addiction, I would hope that they are maybe a psychologist, maybe they are a psychologist that researches video game addiction, maybe they're a counselor who treats people with video game addiction, maybe there's someone that's designed video games and has worked with people who've developed this. Maybe they're an instructor, something like that. Maybe they're just someone that's worked in the industry for a very long time, and they've seen a lot of people go through this. Or maybe there's someone that's suffered and has overcome it. Those are all examples of having strong authority for the topic. Someone who is just ranting about this on the internet, they're not going to have the same authority. If they're an English teacher, I'm not an authority on video game addiction. Okay. Someone that makes video games isn't necessarily going to have as much authoritativeness as someone who's studied this problem. So that's authority. So make sure if you're reading an article, well, did the person who wrote it, do they know a lot about the topic? Or are they a journalist? Are they someone that's credible because this is their job is reporting information? So make sure they have strong authority. So that's one thing to rate them on. You could even maybe rate them on a scale of 1 to 5. Where does their authority come across? 2 is accuracy, which is the information in the article logical? Does it make sense? Are there grammar errors? Are there problems with flow? Can you easily read it and understand it? That's accuracy. you want to make sure that they are putting information in a clear sort of way. If they're missing that, that doesn't help the source. It makes it less reliable. Other things that go into accuracy include, do they have any sort of personal issues? Is their ethos, is another term for this, is their ethos strong? Have they ever plagiarized something? Have they ever committed any crimes or been convicted of crimes? Those are things to look for. If someone has been a problem in society, it doesn't help the reliability of what they wrote. It hurts, especially things like plagiarism. That's a much bigger problem. They've been convicted of some crime that has nothing to do with what they're talking about, less of a problem. But it still doesn't impact the accuracy of their source. Okay, 3, content. Content is basically, do they cite their sources? So in this article, do they have citations of where they got the information? Are they up to date? Do they fulfill this criteria? If they don't cite any sources, that's a big blow to the reliability of the source. So it's something to look at. Objectivity and bias is all about, are they writing this article or this research or this study for money, basically? And this is very difficult to detect. It doesn't happen that often, but it does happen, and it's something to look out for. So, for example, in the past, people have written articles promoting flawed science. So, in the 60s and 70s, there were scientists who wrote research studies about the dangers of cigarettes, and they falsified the data and got paid by cigarette companies. So they wrote up a scientific study, and they falsified the data, and they said, this is the data, it's all true, cigarettes are harmful. And they got paid millions by cigarette companies. Later on, this is proved to be true, and they are sort of dismissed as being reliable sources. So if someone is getting paid, or they have a vested interest in writing the article, or falsifying the data, that's a problem, and that definitely hurts the reliability of your source. This is usually something that happens with much bigger stake issues, right? So we have an example of maybe cigarette companies. This has also happened with beverage product companies, like the Coca-Cola company paid a bunch of scientists to falsify information about how Coca-Cola is not bad for you, or how Coca-Cola hasn't hurt the environment. And if you do some research, you can find that both of those things are not true. Any soda beverage is not good for you, it's liquid sugar. And Coca-Cola has done some damage to the environment if you look into it. There's also been issues like this with global warming, where scientists have been paid by petroleum companies to falsify data saying that global warming isn't happening, that it's not related to burning fossil fuels, et cetera, et cetera. So you probably won't run into bias if you're writing about homelessness or video game addiction or something, but it's possible. So make sure you're analyzing who's writing this article and where potentially is the money coming from. Okay, the last one, currency. Currency is about time. Has the article been written recently? Is the information in it up to date? And probably you won't have an issue with this. Usually, depending on the topic, you don't want to use a source that's more than a couple years old. There are definitely exceptions to this, but a lot of things change really quickly. If you're writing about the video game industry, for example, it changes all the time. So the sources you're going to get about video game addiction from the 90s or the early 2000s are going to be as accurate or as reliable as those from the last couple of years. So generally, you want to use articles that have been published in the last 1 to 5 years. Okay, here's a list of other online resources. Google Scholar is a Google search box, but it's only going to look for scholarly articles. Oftentimes, this will overlap with EBSCO. So EBSCO will also find sources that are on Google Scholar. So, we type in fiction, we might see similar articles. I think this one, I feel like that one came up. Let's go back and search. Yeah, this is the same one, adolescent gamers. Yeah. But it's another place to potentially search. So Google Scholar. The only downside is that sometimes Google Scholar will ask for money to look at a source, and if that happens, make sure that you can't find it on EBSCO. And if you can't find it on our version of EBSCO, you may be able to find it at a local library version of EBSCO. Something else to keep in mind is that EBSCO comes with tiers. So Cogswell, because we're a small college, has the lowest tier of EBSCO access, but they get much bigger. So if you go to the San Jose Public Library, they have the highest tier of EBSCO access. You can find many more articles on it. Another resource is the Library of Congress. Library of Congress is the largest library in the world. It has millions and millions of books, and they also have all kinds of neat stuff besides just articles. They have all kinds of like primary sources. So you can find neat sort of memorabilia and stuff in there. Let's see what happens when we type in. It's going to take a minute. So when we put in video game addiction, we get 585 different things. So here's a video, someone's story of addiction, maybe video game. This is legislation. This is legislation about smoking. This is legislation about actual gaming. So some of this it's such a wide spread of information that you might not find exactly what you're looking for. You can find some awesome stuff in the Library of Congress, but you have to be very specific in your search terms because they have so much going on. And you can narrow this down. So they have their own ways of narrowing things. Are you looking for images? Are you looking for PDFs? You can narrow by date. You can narrow by location so that you can get online so that you can. But that's another file source. ERIC is one for the Educational Research Information Center is all about anything having to do with education in the Department of Education. So if there's anything having to do with education and it's been researched, they've got it. So, you know, they've got specific articles that might not show up. Game addiction and academic achievement. Use of online methodologies, data collection for gambling, gaming addiction. So they might have some other stuff too. So ERIC's another great resource. So use some of those as well. Okay, last couple of things. When you are finished with your researching, you want to make sure to add the information into a proper works cited. So if we go to the Purdue OWL, they've got information on how to format your works cited page. You can look up any of that sort of stuff. So if you go to the MLA guide, we can look at formatting the style guide. Here's a sample paper. Well, let's do the sample works cited. So here's a sample works cited page. So at the end of your article, this is how you would format your paper. You would have a works cited at the top, and for this particular article, it's going to have this format. So it's going to be the author's last name, first name, title of the article, where it was published, when it was published, URL, limits access. A lot of your sources will be like that if they're online. Here's an example of the book. Again, it's last name, first name, title of the book in italics, where it was published, when it was published. So you can find all of that sort of stuff on the out. But you can make it even easier on yourself by using a citation machine. So you can use EasyBit, where all you do is copy and paste the URL, and it'll format your citations for you. You can use a citation machine. You can also use GoodRead. So that will make it easier. It doesn't mean you shouldn't double check and make sure that they're properly cited, but it may make it a little easier. The reason it's important to cite your sources is because obviously plagiarism is stealing, and you have to give credit where credit is due. Two, you want your readers to know where you got this information. You want them to be able to look at your works cited and open the URL. You want to make sure that you've got all the information right, so that if your reader wants to do more research, they can find where that's on that. So that's the fundamental stuff for doing research. As you guys are figuring out what you want to write about, start with a broad net. Start with some Google searches, start with some Wikipedia searches, and then as you start to figure out what you want to argue about, what problem you want to solve, then start looking at EBSCO, look at our library, look at some of these other online databases. I highly encourage you to visit a local library. The portion of this that I talked about at the very top of how the internet has so much information that it's kind of an overwhelming situation. Often the best sources are going to be found in a library, in a book, because it's most of the sources, no one has uploaded them to the internet yet. So a lot of what's on the internet has all just been published or created in the last 20 years. But some of the stuff that's been published outside of that, it just never has been put on there. So I highly recommend finding some hard copy books for your research. They may give you some great quotes. They may give you a good foundation of what you want to argue about. If you have any questions about doing research or how to get started or using any of these search engines, please reach out and let me know. All right? That's it.